Welcome back to the Intro to Reloading series. Today we're going to be discussing the question, what equipment do I need to start reloading? I get asked that question a lot, and unfortunately the answer is not as easy as saying, oh, buy X, Y, and Z and you'll be good to go. It really depends on the individual's needs. The first thing universally I would say you'd need is going to be a good reloading manual. These will cover both general reloading practices, safety practices, the mechanics of reloading, and some just the detailed theory that you'll need to better understand what you're doing. A quick search on Midway USA for reloading manuals pulls up a lot of the most popular ones on the market today. You can see here the Hodgdon one shows up. That's an annually updated manual. It's a good one. The Lyman's also good. Here we have the Sierra. There's also an app for that you can download onto, I know for sure, at least iOS. Going down a little further here, some of these are very niche manuals, and I wouldn't recommend them to a beginner. Good information, but not the broad spectrum that you need. The Hornady 11th edition over here, as well as the Lee Modern Reloading 2nd edition, are two of the best, and the Lee was actually the first one that I ever purchased. Nosler one here is also good. After you have yourself a good reloading manual, the next thing that would be absolutely essential to start reloading is a quality set of calipers. I recommend calipers, not a micrometer, because often the micrometer is going to be too precise and too cumbersome for what you need it to do, and often you wouldn't be able to take the correct measurements anyway. Now, we're not necessarily reading down to the half thousandths here, at least in most cases, so a general set of calipers will do. However, I would recommend that you at least get a stainless steel bodied one, either in dial or digital, whatever your preference is. I happen to prefer digital, with some spare batteries, of course. And there are a lot of good brands out here, ranging anywhere from $25 up to $300 plus for some of these Starretts. There's definitely some good ones on the market, and this isn't something you have to get through a reloading specific outlet. They are available obviously on Amazon, a bunch of online marketplaces. They're quite prolific. This set here, the VINCAs, are actually what I have, and I've been using them for, I think, like around 3 years now, and they're holding up just fine. Replaced the batteries, I think, once, and they're doing just fine. Now that you have a way to measure your cartridges, you need some way to measure your powder. The two most common methods on the market today are a standard digital scale or an analog balance beam scale. Both are commonly used, although the digital is slowly taking over. Couple options here on Midway, again, because their website's one of the easier ones to view. You have some of these Charge Masters. They're basically an automated dispenser scale. And then down here you have this Hornady G3. This is actually my personal scale. It's small enough to transport easily and has a very accurate load cell in it that is able to be used with actually trickling up loads, which a lot of the smaller ones are not. You'll see I'll highlight that right here. Precision load scale, and it is trickle compatible, and weighs down to 1/10 of a grain. They do offer a bench model here, you can see as well. I believe it has the same load cell in, just a larger footprint. A couple different offerings here. Frankfurt Arsenal makes some. National Metallic, which is, I believe, Midway USA is like home brand. That Matchmasters RCBS is one of their flagship models. Quite expensive if you want to dispense powder quickly. It is nice. And then over here on Natchez, you see the Reading beam scale. Classic one, been around for quite a while. These are hand-fitted, actually, in their factory in Cortland, New York. Quality piece of hardware. You have to be careful to keep dust off of it, as with any beam scale, but it works well. Now the one I'm sure you've been waiting for. Which reloading press style is for you? You have the single stage, turret, and progressive presses. Single stage holds one single die in the top and performs one action on a single case per pull of the handle. Turret does the same, except it holds multiple dies in the top, and progressive performs multiple operations on multiple cases per pull of the handle. We'll get into more details later on what that exactly means. Starting off here on Midway, you can see the reloading presses offered sorted low to high in cost that you can actually pick up a Lee single stage breech lock press for $49. That's not bad at all. Good all-around press, but I would not recommend using that for larger rifle calibers. Their Challenger breech lock single stage press is a more popular alternative. Scrolling down here, have a couple RCBS models that are on sale. That's actually quite a good price at the moment. Lee Classic Cast, getting a little bit up there in price. The Hornady Lock and Load, you often see this one at a lot of gun shops. The Lyman's a good one. Rock Chucker, anybody who recommends a single stage press will most likely know the Rock Chucker. It's very popular. Great price there at $132 with that rebate. Moving on down, the Redding Big Boss 2, that's the one I've got. You'll be seeing that in future videos. Very solidly built press, again, made here in Cortland, New York, and castings for it made here in Pennsylvania. Scrolling down, you got some of the larger ones. The Ultra Mag. These are for the Forster Coax there on the side. That's a really popular one for precision reloaders. And then we're getting into a lot of the kit type stuff. So that pretty much rounds out the single stage presses, at least the ones that are available here in Midway. They do have most of them, which is good. Let's take a look over here. So the single stage press, you can see there's one hole in the top of the press. A single die gets put into there, put a cartridge in that, the ram there where the lever arm connects to, and you perform one operation at once. You notice here on the turret presses, that has 4 holes in the top. It can still only work on one case at a time, but it has the ability to store 4 dies in the top without having to thread it in and out of the press all the time. There are several options here as far as turret presses go. Not all of them have 4 holes. If you look over to the right, the Lyman Brassmith All-American 8 is actually an 8 station. And the top turrets on that, as well as the RCBS, I believe, and I know for sure the Redding T7 here, are both removable. And of course the Area 4190 if you want to go to the absolute top of the top. It is $1,300 though. Our last class of press is going to be the Progressive machines. Lee has some offerings here starting around $150 range. They're Auto Breech Lock Pro. This is a 4 station. And unlike the other, both the single stage and the turret presses, Progressive presses work on all the stations at the same time. So you basically get a completed cartridge with each pull of the handle. A couple options here. Hornady Lock and Load AP is good. The RCBS I don't know too much about, and I would steer away from the Lees unless you're doing only light volume stuff. Here, of course, the Dillons. The 550C is manual indexed. The 750 is auto indexing. 4 and 5 station respectively, and of course the RL 1100 at the bottom. So you have a press picked out, but now you need dies. The dies are the physical pieces of tooling that actually apply the different actions to the cartridge itself. Dies come in various sets, both for rifle and pistol, various sizing inserts as far as pistols. It's common to find carbide insert sizing dies. Certain dies require a case sizing lubricant, while others do not. And they come in different kits with seating, crimping, expanding dies. All depends on what you're doing. Taking a look at some dies here, you can see a couple offerings available through Lee. There's a 3 die set, 4 die sets, obviously different combinations there. Lee offers one of the best values in the industry as far as value to cost ratio goes. I have never had an issue with a Lee die. They are not the fanciest, nor are they the top of the line, but they bring an excellent value to the reloader that still is able to load cartridges at a very affordable price, and I have yet to ever have one go bad. Like I said, they're not the fanciest, but they definitely work. Taking a look at this 4 die set here, 9mm Luger, you're looking at $60. Sometimes you can catch these on sale. See this 380 set here, it's just the still same 4 dies, but you're only looking at like $35.18. It's a really good deal for 4 dies. The 57 Magnum. Typically in these 4 die sets, you're going to get a sizing depriming die, a powder through expander die, at least for the Lees, a bullet seating die, which in some cases can crimp, and then a dedicated crimping die. Their 3 die sets typically omit the crimping die. Backing out here, scrolling down through, obviously Hornady makes dies, RCBS makes dies, Lyman makes dies. It really just comes down to figuring out exactly what you want to do with it and finding a good set in your price range. My personal favorite for dies as far as manufacturer obviously has got to be Redding. Their machine quality is absolutely second to none, and you're not paying the extreme high price that you'd pay on a lot of the custom shop style dies. They offer them in various sets as well. Dies optimized for progressive press loading versus regular just single stage or turret press loading in varying kits. And one thing to note on the Redding carbide dies, and they got some 9mm on clearance here. $67 for a set of 3. That is really good, actually. With their carbide, I think I scroll down to it here, they actually use titanium carbide, unlike tungsten carbide, which most of the other manufacturers use. It actually provides a smoother sizing experience and further reduces the amount of felt force on the handle. Also, I believe it's a little bit harder, so your durability is increased. Knurling, fit finish, everything on these is, as I've always experienced, impeccable. So now that we have press and dies, we turn our attention towards the obvious part of this reloading scenario, which is of course components. Obviously you're going to need primers, as shown here. Just good variety, pick the size that accurately matches what you need for pistol, rifle for rifle, magnum or not. That's basically the gist. Whatever powder you're going to be using, I'll go into more detail on this later. Basically, look at some load data, match it up with a burn rate chart, figure out what barrel length you're using, what projectile weights. There's a bunch that goes into it, but it's not as complicated as it sounds. Pick your powder, figure out how much you're going to load of it, obviously whatever size jug you want, or 1 pound, whatever you want to do. And then, of course, projectiles. Just punching in a quick search here on Midway for projectiles brings up a bunch of different rifle bullet profiles. These are available in various different grain weights. You have pistol bullets, basically the whole range. When you come on here, you can filter based off of certain diameters, certain grain weights to find exactly what you're looking for. As mentioned in some other videos, you can go back here to Rocky Mountain Reloading, which happens to be one of my favorite bullet suppliers. If you ever have the time, cross-check their prices up against Midway, and you'll see why I like them so much. They offer in-house made full metal jacket bullet at a cost comparable to what most other companies are selling their plated lead or even their cast lead bullets. It's quite nice, and you get the extra performance out of them for the same cost as the cheaper ones would be. One of the inevitable facts of reloading rifle cases is that over time, the rifle case length will actually grow. This means you're going to need to get something in order to trim those cases back to spec so you don't have overpressure. Case trimming can be either as intense or as cheap as you'd like it to be. Even setting the case upright and running a file over it would suffice, although it might be a little bit crude. Cheapest option I found on the market as far as like a standard trimming device is going to be the little Lee case lock studs here. You're looking around $7-ish for the insert and the modified shell holder here, and about the same for the cutter and the base. So all in all, roughly about $14-15 for the setup, which is honestly not too bad. On the other end of things, you can go with something like a Little Crow Gunworks, their World's Finest Trimmer 2. If you haven't seen the review on that, I did. Check that out on the channel. It's one of my earlier videos. These run roughly $73, at least here on Midway, plus extra inserts being available for around $24-25 a piece. Lastly, you're going to need some way to be able to clean your brass. On the commercial market available today, there's most commonly wet tumblers, dry tumblers, as well as ultrasonic cleaners. I started out with an ultrasonic cleaner and then transitioned over to a wet tumbler because I can do larger volumes at a time and it gives a little bit better finish. Having an ultrasonic cleaner is a benefit though, as you can occasionally use it as a parts washer, which makes cleaning inside those bolt carrier groups also quite nice. So they each have their advantages. Pick whichever one suits to you and you should be fine. Only downside to dry tumbler though is all the lead dust and contaminants does get into the air, so I would not recommend doing this inside a house unless you had proper ventilation. With all the equipment options out of the way, the question comes down to, why do you want to reload? This question and the answer to it varies by person to person, and what you choose as far as equipment will be based off of this question. A couple recommendations I'd have as first steps for anyone getting ready to start out. Figure out what your reloading purpose is going to be. This will guide pretty much the rest of it. Are you going for cost savings per round? Are you going for ammo customization and accuracy? Are you doing it just for a fun hobby? That's the question you have to answer, and the decisions in what equipment you pick up will depend on that. After you've determined what you want to do with reloading, the next step is figuring out what your budget's going to be for your reloading setup. I recommend about 2 to 4 months worth of your typical ammo budget just to get started in purchasing equipment. My best recommendation here, if you're serious about getting into reloading, is to buy the best equipment that you can afford while staying in budget with enough money left over to buy components and proper tooling. Also worth noting, the more you shoot, the more volume optimized equipment like progressive presses and other electronic stuff you will need. Don't worry about the upfront cost. If you're shooting thousands of rounds a month, the equipment will pay for itself pretty quickly. Just take a look at our previous cost comparison video and you'll be able to run the numbers there. The next point would be actually shop around for deals. Some local shops, sometimes you can find stuff on eBay, classified ads, online stores. I know Midway USA does this quite a bunch. They'll list clearance stuff, sale deals. You can go in, just click sale items, filter by the percentage off, that kind of thing. They are quite available. And lastly, of course, watch lots of YouTube videos on the equipment you're getting ready to buy for extra tips and tricks. There's a lot of people here on YouTube that have experienced a lot of this tooling and are more than happy to share it with new reloaders. Also, there are a bunch of forums and stuff. I happen to be in on the High Road. It's a reloading forum, as well as a bunch of the MeWe groups that are quite helpful. And lastly, if you're just getting into reloading, a couple things I'd recommend avoiding. The first would be super expensive and kind of those niche tools that are outside your main reloading experience. As an example, if you're going for just bulk range plinking ammo for, say, like a USPSA match or something like that, getting a concentricity gauge or a concentricity sled for high precision rifle is not exactly going to fit inside that role. If you can afford it, great, but don't put the money towards that when you need to spend it on something else. And the other thing, and I've seen a lot of veteran reloaders say the same as well, but don't buy the cheap starter kits if you can afford to step up to something better. I know a lot of reloaders, myself included, that bought a kit and only use about 1 to 2 items out of that kit still a couple years later. Most of the other items have been replaced along the way with items that were better. Just my 2 cents, maybe help you save some money down the road. If you have any questions, please leave them below in the comment section and I will get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks as always for watching. If you enjoyed the content we put out here, go ahead, hit the like button, click the subscribe button, and don't forget to click that little notification bell next to it so you don't miss any of our future videos. And as always, keep on reloading.